Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hi, everybody. I'm Phil Bliss, founder and CEO of Canada's podcast, coming to you today from Toronto. Today, we're going to meet Liran Bellenson, who's the CEO of BenchSci, a biomedical artificial intelligence company he co-founded in 2016. BenchSci's mission is to exponentially increase the speed and quality of life-saving research by empowering scientists to design more successful experiments. BenchSci has grown to over 300 people and raised more than $200 million from top investors, including Google's Radiant Ventures and F-Prime. BenchSci works with 15 of the world's top 20 pharma companies, over 4,300 academic institutions, and more than 40,000 scientists. As CEO, Liran strives to inspire people to be the best version of themselves and to make a positive impact on the world. Liran emigrated to Toronto and completed his MBA at the U of T's Rotman School of Management. While at Rotman, he worked at the Creative Destruction Lab, where he met BenchSci co-founders Tom Leung, David Chen, and Elvis Wianda. As a passionate entrepreneur, Liran envisions the future where Toronto and Canada are global leaders in entrepreneurship. Actually, I first met Liran about 6 years ago when a very young BenchSci won the Bright Lane Entrepreneur Awards, which I was managing. It is so good to see that BenchSci has gone so far. So, Liran, welcome to Canada's podcast. Great to see you. I haven't seen you for a few years, but I'm delighted that BenchSci has moved absolutely along in the right direction that we thought it would 5 or 6 years ago. And before we get too deep in the conversation, why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about Liran, who you are, how you got here, and what you do at the moment.
For sure. That sounds great. And thank you for having me. So I guess I have a few jobs. I'm a husband. I'm a dad to two beautiful children, 3 and 5-year-olds. And I'm a CEO and a co-founder of BenchSci, which is a Toronto-based but pretty much global company that applies AI to really understand how disease biology works, so we can then support scientists to help them develop better, faster, and cheaper drugs for patients. And I guess my journey starts, maybe I'll start 10 years ago or more. I moved to Canada. So I'm originally from Israel, born and raised. I was there till I was 28. So finished high school, went to serve at the IDF. And after that, got my law degree and a business degree. And started 2 startups there. Didn't really take off too much. One was reasonably okay. But then 10 years ago, I moved to Canada. And the reason I came here was obviously because of a girl that I met.
Which happens.
Who's my wife now. So we met actually in Southeast Asia. She was traveling between degrees. I was traveling between my army service and my undergrad, which is very common in Israel. And we met in Southeast Asia. A few years later we reconnected. She lived in Toronto. We did long distance for 2 years and then kind of wrapped up everything in Israel, sold my company, finished my degree, and came here. Mm-hmm. And I came here under a student visa. And I did my MBA at the University of Toronto. And when I moved here, one thing was very clear to me. And it was that no matter what, I never want to do startups again. Because my first 2 experiences were so brutally hard and painful that I didn't know what I want to do, but I knew what I don't want to do. And then at the University of Toronto, at Rotman, which is their MBA school, there is this startup program for MBA students called the Creative Destruction Lab, in which it's a course in which you as an MBA student are prepared to work with a group of scientists who are very smart and have developed some sort of a technology. And together, and it's just a course for them, it's real life, You help them figure out how to take that technology or idea and turn it into a startup in a company. And I signed up for that course. I don't know why, but I did. And I met this incredible team. And long story short, I ended up joining them as a co-founder and a CEO. And I just couldn't help it. And that was 8 years ago. And today we've raised over $200 million. We're over 350 people. We work with the majority of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And we developed really an incredible technology and a company that makes a lot of impact on a global scale every single day.
Canada's podcast is your gateway to success in the world of entrepreneurship. Start listening today. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
So you started off as an entrepreneur, and then you went back to school.
Yep.
Over here. Thought entrepreneurship was lousy, went back to it. Having seen the bad side and now the good side, what would you say is best about being an entrepreneur?
My perspective on this is a bit different.
Yeah.
I don't really try and sell it. I actually do the opposite, because 99% of the time it doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And you take a lot of risks, financial, I will say personal, even health-wise, because you work to every extent. It's not just a financial risk, it's risk on relationships, because you're so committed to it and it's really consuming. And also from your health perspective. And most of the time, mental and physical. And most of the time, it doesn't work out, almost all the time. So for me, I actually think people shouldn't do it. And I think the only reason people should do it is, it was kind of like my case, which is you can't help not do it. Which is telling you that's like, you're not doing, oh, this is going to be so much fun, and so on and so on. You're just wired in a certain way, and just something inside you that cannot let things go in, probably in an obsessive way, that you just feel like you have to do this no matter what. Because some moments are fun, but almost all of them are not. Especially even as the company gets bigger and you're quote unquote successful.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the problems that you are dealing with are more existential than when you get started in your small team and you're aware of everything that happens. Not everything is a big deal.
Yeah.
So people ask me, early investors, early employees, hey, you having fun? And I say, it's not a part of the equation. For me, it's, do I find this meaningful? Am I contributing? Am I still adding value? And as long as the answer is yes, then that's what drives me. It's not about whether or not I'm having fun or not. I think almost the entire journey is not fun.
What's the greatest challenge you've faced in the business to date that you've been able to overcome, that maybe you can pass on that experience?
Yeah, I think that there have been many in different stages of the business. I can talk about a few. COVID was one of them, where we started. When COVID started, we were 50 people in the company. When COVID ended, also quote unquote, when the lockdown ended in Toronto, which was the city that was on the lockdown the most, we went from 50 people to 300 people. Okay, so
wow.
2 period, where some of the original 50 left, right? So it was pretty much 90% of the company was hired in remote setting over the course of 2 years. Controlling that operationally, culturally, was very challenging. Went from being in Toronto, everybody at the office every single day, to have employees all over Canada, all over the US, and the UK. So how do you onboard people? How do you build a relationship? How do you build trust? How do you ship products? All the stuff we had to figure out along the way. That was one. Two, I would say everything that's even happening right now from an innovation perspective with generative AI. So for us, luckily, we've been working on this for a while, and also we really decided to go all in on Gen AI relatively fast. And that has been a really big game changer for us. But not being able to being able to take risks and being agile and move fast is also something that's crucial and not simple to do. I think on a personal level, as the company grows and as it gets bigger, as the problems get bigger and the challenges get bigger, I think personally is something that I think I've been working on, and I think others should as well, is just staying calm, which is just very, very important in order to be able to manage. Also, this ability to compartmentalize is really, really important. You change hats 20 times a day, and being able to show up properly in different scenarios is something that's really, really important. So that's, I think, something that's less about being smart or understanding something or strategic or being a great leader. It's just also a lot of kind of personal work you need to do of just make sure you're staying calm, trusting your team, and helping everybody, including yourself, navigate whatever you're going through.
So I think one of the things that you raised 200 million, and obviously there's a lot of learning in that, and someone that manages like you guys did to find something that really looks like it's going to go in the right direction. Any advice on that raise process in terms of what not to do, basically, and what to do?
In terms of which process? The scaling, the pivot,
the scaling in terms of the scaling, making sure you're well enough funded to scale effectively, basically.
For sure. So for sure. I think in the early days, what you think you're going to end up doing and what you're actually doing is two different things. And I think it's fine. It's supposed to be like that, because as you go, you learn more information. So this entire concept, I personally really believe in it, which is strong conviction, loosely held, is very important. Because you have to have really strong conviction to go and try something, because everybody will think it's not going to work. But you need to be smart enough to know when to let it go and not bang your head against the wall, because you have to move left or right. That's really important at the beginning. I would argue that's also really important as the business grows. It's probably done in different speed. But that is very crucial in terms of finding a product market fit. On the fundraising process, I've learned a lot. My first time doing it, I probably did all the possible mistakes. Also, I was new to the country. I knew absolutely no one work. But it probably took me 9 months to raise the first time. That was the first $1 million in the company. And ever since, whether we raised 20 or 50 or $100 million, it didn't take us more than 3 weeks to do that. And the main reason is that we probably do the exact opposite of the advice that is out there, which is usually, hey, build relationships with investors and making sure you update them on how things are going and talk to as many people as you can, and so on, and yada, and yada, yada. I personally just don't talk to investors between rounds. I don't update them about anything that's happening with the company. And the idea is that what you're trying to do when you fundraise is create a market for your company and create urgency. And you do that by running a process that is time consumed, that has a lot of or a certain amount of investors. Let's say if you're good at fundraising, you should probably do a fundraising process of 15 to 20 investors that you think they might be a good fit to what you do. And you meet everybody on the first kind of 3 days, tell them you're fundraising, tell them you're running a process, and you get going. And that creates an urgency in the market. And imagine something along the lines of a bidding war on your house if you're selling your house. That's really what you want. Hey, we're doing 2 days of showings. This is when we're taking offers, and so on. You don't use the exact same wording or process when you fundraise, but that's the concept. And why not build relationships with investors or give them updates? Because you only have one chance to make a first impression. It's like going to see in a movie. So really, when you go and fundraise, you're creating a deck. And that deck is the book of your company, the story of your company, the movie of your company. You want to show it, and you want people to have a great experience when they see it. And you don't want to show the shitty versions of it as you're editing it. And that's why the process might take 3 weeks, but the prep work is 3 months to fundraise. Making sure the deck is solid, the story is solid, you have the right investors, the data room is ready, and so on and so on. And then when you meet investors, you tell them a fantastic story and you hit the ground running. The other reason you don't want to build relationships with investors is that they get to see your company in a way that you might not want to share it yet, or you're still figuring stuff out, or you're still working on the story, and so on and so on. So that just like puts you in certain buckets and just makes it much harder in the future. Investors will say 180 of what I'm saying, but they also have an incentive to basically just build relationships because they get more information about you, and there is information in which when you fundraise. And the second thing is their job. Their job is to create a funnel of startups and maintain it with the hopes that one of them will transit to investment.
The other thing I was kind of interested in is, you're in Toronto, and you've taken this organization from a startup to, I can't remember how many, 300 plus people internationally. You talked a little bit about that, but what did you learn from that in terms of how to not just scale up, but go international at the same time?
I think it depends on the context of the business. So for us, we're a software company. So going internationally, it's not complex because it's a software you can access and use anywhere. So we don't have the entire aspect of logistics or how to ship products. It's one language for everybody. So there's some sort of simplicity that allows you to do that. You do have to jump on a lot of planes. And it's funny. So when I moved here, to become a citizen after you're a permanent resident, you have to be here 3 out of the next 5 years to apply for citizenship. And if it wasn't for COVID, I would still not be a citizen because I was traveling so much. So COVID really grounded me. But I travel a ton, and I meet a lot of people around the world and a lot of customers. And we have customers in Europe, in US, in Japan. And I think it's just one, when you break it down to kind of first principles, your value and how you pitch and so on, that's pretty much similar. Where the nuances come in is understanding different cultures. European or British cultures are different than American, and how to read the room and what people are saying, what does it mean, how to interpret that, how to do business in different organizations, and understand the tempo of a French culture and so on. Each of them is just very different. That's something that I think is valuable. But honestly, I think things sometimes just sound more complicated than they actually are. Even when I hear, and I guess it sounds complicated, we're a global company and people everywhere and like customers everywhere. It works. There's certain simplicity in our business. It's really, really hard and challenging and complex to build a technology, but it's very much scalable. I think maybe that's the point. If you build something to scale, everything afterwards become very, very easy, which is how we build a company to start. If we're a different type of business that had to set up shop in every city to scale and translate to many different languages and operate in different ways in different country, very, very, very different story and level of complexity. We fortunately don't have those challenges.
Stay ahead of the game with our expert tips and strategies that will help your business thrive in a digital era. CanadasPodcast.com. Subscribe now.
But let's talk a little bit about mentorship. What's the sort of best piece of advice that you've been given that, you keep, it's always there in the back of your mind as you progress through things?
I think there are a few. Some came from books, some came from mentors, some came from smart people I met along the way. One of them is keep asking yourself, are you a learner or a knower? which means do you think you know it all? Or do you want to learn from other people, regardless if they work with you, you're their manager, or above you, the sideways, or whatever it is. It's just kind of that fundamental question of how do you show up? So that one I really like. I'm a learner now. I try and be as much as a learner as I can. The second thing, I got advice from another CEO and founder, which I really like, which is more on a process that he does, which is every year he sits down and he asks himself, how am I unrecognizable in a good way in 12 months from now? And that is what guides him to set goals for himself, understand what's going to be the next version of himself that he wants to be. For me, every year I'm a different type of CEO of my evolution and different type of founder or person even. And it's a very different skill set when you're 4 people, when you're 100 people, 50, 200, 300, 400, D stage, A stage, B stage, and all the other letters. It's just a very different skill set. So staying attuned to that and making sure you earn your spot every single day is just something I personally believe in. I think it's really important.
That's good. That's really good, actually. Similar kind of idea. If you know what you know now, what do you wish you'd known when you started the business in terms of, something, oh my God, if I'd known that at the beginning, I could have saved myself a tremendous amount of pain.
Yeah. So specifically for the business, and I think there's some sort of naivete for founders. If I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have started a company. There's too many things had to fall into the right place for this to be successful. There's too many things.
So would you say that people don't become an entrepreneur?
It's not about entrepreneur. I say do it unless you don't feel like you just cannot not do it. Do that. In terms of even the specific company, our company, because when you go into it, especially I would say if you're a founder, you're probably an optimist because you think things can work out, and you probably underestimate the challenge of doing certain things or just stuff things just don't know that have to fit and work out for your company to be successful. So everything I know now, and after 8 years in it, I would probably say, hey, there's no way this can succeed. There's too many things that have to go exactly right for this to succeed. So we made it happen, probably more than anything. So there's that. But if there's something I wish I knew to do better going into this, is probably 2 things. One, fundraise, because we did get good at it at probably B stage. Would have said probably a year of work at the early stage. So that was really on the core advice I just kind of shared. The second thing is better at parting ways with people at the right time. And when it's obvious, it's easy. When it's just not working, they're terrible, that's easy. When it's in the middle, it's really hard. And that's what's also hard to do about my job. And I'm sure the board has the same job, by the way, with me, which is, do we have the right people for the next 18, 24, 36 months right now? Because that's what you want to judge them on. But in 36 months, hopefully this company is twice the size or 3 times the size. And then you have to do the same assessment again. Are those the right people for that time? Maybe they grew, maybe they are, maybe they're not. But you constantly also evaluate your team and figuring out who's ready for now, who's ready for the future. As I'm sure the board does with me as the CEO. Am I ready for now? Am I ready for the future, as they should? But it's something that's inherent in startup that go well and scale up, because the job you have today and the job you might have in 3 years, it might be 2 completely different jobs.
Think about that. If you weren't doing what you're doing now, what would you be doing instead?
Well, it depends. Do I have to work or am I retired?
I don't know. You tell me.
If I'm retired, I would honestly spend a lot of time with my family. I have young kids. Spend time with my kids and wife as much as possible. But knowing myself, I'll probably just start doing something fairly fast, because one of my problems is that once I see something in my head or have an idea, I have this absolutely insane sense of urgency to bring it to life,
Yeah.
in an obsessive manner, I would argue. My wife suffers from that quality of mine. It's great for startups. It's great when you're doing a long distance relationship and you move across the ocean to be with your girlfriend. But there's that aspect. Yeah, I think like this is kind of what I'm wired to do, to be honest with you. And
Okay.
it's because of that. I love bringing things to life. I just love bringing
Yeah,
things.
I
It
kind
doesn't matter
of
what it
know
is.
that. I get that. What book are you currently reading or podcast listening to? Or maybe more, what book would you recommend to the audience?
I gotta give you all the above. So I don't read books. I listen to books because I don't really have time to read. So when I
Okay, that's fine. I understand
listen,
you and many others.
yeah. So I listen to a lot of books, and the only books I listen to are business books, and I love business stories. So I
Mhm,
absolutely fell in love with a podcast called Acquired.
mhm,
I think it's the number one podcast in the States right now. It's basically every show, it's like 4 hours long, and it takes a company and it just
mhm,
analyzes it and tells the story of the company from day one till today. So
mhm,
thinking via Microsoft, Amazon, Novo Nordisk, and many others. And I
mhm.
just absolutely love it. So basically every episode is a book. Um, that's a podcast. In terms of some books I love, Shoe Dog, Hard Things About Hard Things, Zero to One is an excellent book. Um, One of my favorite books actually is not a business book. It's called Open by Andre Agassi, and don't have to be a tennis fan to like that book. It's probably one of the best books I've ever listened to or read in my life. Um,
Cool.
the Conscious Business, I think, is a book that probably not a lot of people have heard about, but it's also an excellent book. Yeah,
Good.
those are some examples.
That's a good reading list for people or listening list. Are you a morning or a night person?
I'm a morning person. I wake up at 4:45 every day.
Oh, wow. Pretty early. Liran, if you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be and why would you choose it?
I'll give you the why first, and then I'll tell you the word. Why? Because this is what everybody else say when they're probably need to describe me in one word. Even though I don't think it's true, but I guess it is because people say it, and that word would be intense.
What's keeping you up at night?
My kids.
Apart from that, I suspect you'd say that.
Every week it's something else,
Yeah,
whether it's personal. So as I mentioned to you, I'm originally from Israel, so everything that's happening there and my family there, that's
yeah, I can understand that.
yeah. So that, which kind of goes back to compartmentalizing.
Mm,
Stuff at work, whether it's technology, customers, team members, every week is something else. I care deeply. Um, I know a lot of things are happening in the company. I want to understand what's working, what's not, so I can support the team. And every time something else, it can be a big launch, it can be a big deal with a customer. It can be something that's happening around people. It can be my kids, but it really changes. That's the dynamic part of it, I guess.
yeah.
But I've learned to sleep better, to be honest, which I think is really important. I'll try not to check my phone just before I go to bed, so I don't see that email that keeps me up all night because something just happened. I think showing up properly
Mhm.
becomes even more and more and more important as your company grows.
Okay. We're hitting our time limit. I kind of like to do 30 minutes. Um, how can people get a hold of you, Liran, if they heard stuff and they want to sort of get some input?
For me, they can shoot me an email. My email
Mhm.
is Liran, Liran, at BenchSci.com.
Okay. Hey, it's been great seeing you again. I really have
Yeah.
enjoyed it, and great to see what you've done with BenchSci. Loved it. Okay.
so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I'm Phil Bliss. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter on our website and also subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for listening to Canada's podcast, where you get to meet the entrepreneurs that drive Canada's economy. See you soon.